The vault had not changed in 11,000 years. It sat deep beneath the floating citadel of the conclave of stars, carved from stone that predated most civilizations in the galaxy. The air inside was cold and still, carrying the weight of countless failures and broken dreams. At the center of the chamber, resting on a pedestal made of crystallized starlight, sat the armor of Kelthos. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, its surface shifting between silver and deep black like oil on water. The metal seemed alive, breathing slowly, waiting for something that had never come. High Commander Zethan of the Valorian Empire walked toward it with the confidence of a being who had never known defeat. His species stood 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plating that could stop most weapons. They had conquered 17 star systems through pure military might. Their warriors were legendary across the galaxy. He reached out his clawed hand toward the armor. His soldiers watched from the edge of the chamber, certain that today would be the day their commander claimed the legendary weapon. The moment his fingers touched the surface, white light exploded outward. Zethan flew backward through the air, crashing into the far wall with enough force to crack the ancient stone. He slid to the ground, his ceremonial robes smoking, his pride wounded far worse than his body. Rejected, said the keeper of the vault. He was an ancient Salathi, a species known for living thousands of years. His skin was like old paper, his eyes like faded stars. He had watched this scene play out more times than he could remember. As were all before you, Ambassador Lorene observed from the gallery above. She was Valanthe, her skin naturally luminescent, glowing with soft blue light that flickered when she felt strong emotions. Right now, it flickered with frustration and growing fear. How many is that now? She asked her advisor, Counselor Vreth. 247 species have sent their champions, Vreth answered. His voice was flat, emotionless. All have been rejected. Some violently. 12 candidates died from the rejection energy alone. Lyrene turned away from the scene below, where Valorian soldiers were helping their shamed commander to his feet. She walked to the window that looked out over the citadel, over the stars beyond, and the Harrow fleet was detected 3 cycles ago, she said quietly. Our scouts report it has already consumed the outer colonies. 6 billion lives, gone in days. I am aware, Vreth said. We have perhaps 3 more cycles before it reaches the inner systems, before it reaches the homeworlds. She pressed her hand against the cold glass. The prophecy says whoever wears the armor will have the power to stop such threats. The first builders created it for exactly this purpose. The prophecy also says the armor chooses its wearer. We cannot force the matter. Lorene was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was tired. Is there truly no species we have not tried? Vreth hesitated. It was a small hesitation, barely noticeable, but Lorene caught it immediately. Speak, she commanded. There is one species, Vreth said slowly. Though I hesitate to mention them, they would be an embarrassment to consider. Who? The humans. Lorene almost laughed. Humans were the newest species to achieve faster-than-light travel, having managed it only 60 years ago. They came from a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star in a quiet corner of the galaxy. They had no natural weapons, no psychic abilities, no enhanced senses or built-in armor. Their bodies were soft and fragile. They lived barely a century before dying of old age, by every standard the Conclave used to measure species. Humans were among the weakest sentient beings in known space. You cannot be serious, she said. I am merely being thorough, Vreth replied. You asked if there was any species we had not tried. The humans are the only ones. Lyrene shook her head. The armor has rejected the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Beings who could crush a human with one hand. What could a human possibly offer that a Valorian or a Kathrani could not? Nothing, I imagine. But we are running out of options. She turned back to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of 100 different ships. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered to witness the attempts to claim the armor. None of them believed the solution would come from them anymore. They were simply here to watch the end approaching. The Harrow does not negotiate, she said. It does not conquer or enslave. It simply consumes. Every world in its path becomes nothing. Not even debris remains. I know. If we cannot activate the armor, billions will die. Perhaps trillions. Perhaps everyone. She closed her eyes. Send word to Earth. Invite them to send a candidate. Ambassador, the other species will mock us. They will see it as desperation. We are desperate, Lyrine said simply. And perhaps mockery is better than extinction. The message reached Earth 3 days later. It arrived at the offices of the United Defense Council, decoded by specialists who could barely believe what they were reading. An invitation to send a human to try on ancient alien armor that might save the galaxy? Admiral. Cho read the message 7 times before accepting it was real. They want us to send someone, he said to the assembled council. Someone who might die just from touching this thing. It's an honor, said one of the diplomats. Being invited to participate alongside the great species? It's a joke, said another. They've tried everyone else. We're their last resort. They expect us to fail like all the others. Admiral Cho set the message down. Whether it's an honor or a joke doesn't matter. What matters is whether we send someone. And if so, who? The room fell into argument. Some wanted to send their best soldier, their strongest warrior. Others pointed out that strength clearly wasn't what the armor wanted, given how many strong species had already failed. Some suggested sending scientists, others suggested sending nobody at all. In the end, they decided to open it up to volunteers. Anyone willing to travel across the galaxy and possibly die touching alien metal was welcome to put their name forward. The list of volunteers was shorter than anyone expected. Most people, it turned out, were not eager to die for a long shot at saving the galaxy. But one name stood out among the few who did volunteer. Not because she was special, but because she was so ordinary. Lieutenant Commander Katie Morgan, Xenolinguistics Specialist, 34 years old, no combat experience, no family, no particular reason to be chosen, except that she had raised her hand when no one else would. Her interview with the selection committee lasted less than 10 minutes.
Oh, why do you want to do this?
Admiral Cho asked her directly. Katie thought about it for a moment. Because someone has to, she said, and I have nothing holding me here. If I die, no one will miss me much. If I succeed, maybe I'll have done something that matters. It wasn't inspiring. It wasn't heroic. It was just honest. 3 weeks later, she boarded a shuttle bound for the stars, carrying nothing but a small bag of personal items and the strange feeling that are boring. Ordinary life was about to become something else entirely. She had no idea. How right she was? The shuttle ride took 18 days. Katie spent most of it alone in her small cabin, reading everything the database had on the armor of Kelthos. There was not much. The armor was old, older than most species in the galaxy. It had been created by beings called the First Builders, a civilization so ancient that even their ruins had turned to dust long ago. What remained was the armor itself, and the prophecy that surrounded it. Whoever could wear the armor would gain the power to protect the galaxy from the Great Darkness. Many had tried. All had failed. Most had been thrown across the room by violent energy discharge. Some had died instantly. Their nervous systems burned out by the armor's rejection. Katie read these accounts with a strange calmness. She had already accepted that she would probably die. There was a certain peace in that acceptance, a freedom from worry that she had never felt before. When the shuttle finally arrived at the Conclave Citadel, Katie pressed her face to the window like a child seeing snow for the first time. The Citadel floated in space, a massive structure of crystal and metal that caught the light of nearby stars and scattered it into rainbows. Hundreds of ships surrounded it, more alien vessels than Katie had ever seen in one place. A diplomatic escort met her at the docking bay. The aliens towered over her, most of them standing 7 or 8 feet tall. Their expressions were impossible to read, but Katie could guess what they were thinking. This small, soft creature was supposed to succeed where their greatest champions had failed. It would be laughable if it wasn't so sad. Ambassador Lyrine greeted her personally. which Katie understood was a great honor. The Valanthi woman's skin glowed with soft blue light, and her eyes held a kindness that seemed genuine despite the circumstances. "Welcome, Lieutenant Commander Morgan," Lyrian said. "I hope your journey was comfortable." "It was fine, thank you." Katie looked around at the massive hall, the alien architecture that made her feel very small. "I appreciate you inviting humanity to participate." Something flickered in Lyrian's expression. Guilt, perhaps. "We should be honest with each other. You are here because we have tried everyone else. The Conclave does not expect you to succeed." "I know," Katie said simply. "I read the briefings. 247 species, all rejected. I'm not offended by being last. Someone has to be." Lyrian studied her for a long moment. "You are not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Anger, perhaps, or false bravery. Most species send their champions with great ceremony, convinced they will be the one to claim the armor. You seem ... peaceful." "I'm not a champion. I'm just a translator who volunteered. I figure if the armor was looking for strong warriors, it would have found one by now. Maybe it's looking for something else. And what might that be? I have no idea. But I'm curious to find out." They gave her a room in the diplomatic quarters, a space designed for beings much larger than her. The bed was too big, the ceiling too high, the furniture too heavy to move. Katie felt like a child playing in an adult's world. That night, she could not sleep. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Harrow fleet was moving closer. She had seen the footage, the images of worlds being consumed. It looked like darkness eating light, like nothing swallowing something. 6 billion people on the outer colonies, gone in days. Not conquered or enslaved, just erased. She thought about Earth, her small apartment with its single window. Her books, mostly language dictionaries and alien grammar guides. Her plant that she always forgot to water. Her neighbor's cat that sometimes visited her balcony. Such small things. Such ordinary things. Were they worth dying for? She decided they were. The next morning, they took her to the vault. It was a solemn procession, dozens of alien dignitaries following behind her, like mourners at a funeral. Katie supposed that made sense. They were probably expecting to watch her die. The vault doors were massive. It's carved with symbols that predated written language. They opened slowly, revealing the darkness within. Cold air rushed out, carrying a smell like old stone and distant lightning. Katie walked inside alone. Her footsteps echoed in the vast space, small sounds swallowed by the darkness above. She could feel the eyes of the observers on her back, could sense their pity and their doubt. The armor waited at the center of the chamber. It was more beautiful than the images had suggested, more alive. The metal shifted and flowed, silver becoming black, becoming silver again. It hummed with a frequency that Katie felt in her chest, rather than heard with her ears. "You may approach," said the keeper. His voice was thin and dry, like wind through dead leaves. Katie walked forward. Her heart was beating fast, but her hands were steady. She thought about all the warriors who had come before her, the mighty champions who had been thrown aside like toys. She thought about the little girl she had been, the one who used to hide in the library because she was too shy to talk to other children, the one who learned alien languages because it was easier than learning to talk to humans, the one who had grown up alone, worked alone, lived alone. Maybe that was why she wasn't afraid. She had nothing to lose. She reached the pedestal and looked at the armor. Up close, she could see patterns in the metal that looked almost like writing, symbols that shifted and changed too fast to read. "Hello," she said softly. "I'm Katie. I know you've rejected a lot of people, and I understand if you reject me too. But I wanted you to know that I'm not here for glory or power. I'm just here because someone had to come, and I had nothing better to do." The armor did not respond. Of course it didn't. It was just metal. No matter how ancient or mysterious, Katie reached out her hand. The moment her fingers touched the surface, pain exploded through her body. It was like being struck by lightning, like being torn apart at the molecular level. She heard someone screaming and realized it was her own voice. Images flooded her mind. She saw the first builders, beings of pure energy who existed before matter cooled into stars. She saw them forging the armor in the heart of a dying sun, pouring their hope and their fear into the metal. She saw the darkness they had glimpsed at the edge of reality, the hungry nothing that waited to consume everything. She saw the warriors who had tried to claim the armor over the millennia, proud beings, powerful beings, all of them reaching for power and glory. All of them rejected because they wanted the armor for themselves. And then the armor spoke to her. Not in words, but in feelings, in understanding that bypassed language entirely. "Why do you reach for me, small one?" Katie's mind was fragmenting under the pressure. She could feel herself coming apart, could feel her consciousness scattering like leaves in a storm. "I don't know," she thought back. "I just wanted to help." Help whom? Everyone. Anyone. The people who will die if the harrow isn't stopped. And what do you want for yourself? Katie searched for an answer. What did she want? Power? No. Glory? No. Recognition? She had never cared about any of those things. I want... ... We struggled to form the thought. I want to matter. Just once. I want my life to mean something. The pain receded slightly. The armor was quiet, considering, "You do not seek to use me? I seek to help you do what you were made for. If that means I die, then at least I died trying." The silence stretched on forever. Katie hung in the void between life and death, waiting for judgment. Then, for the first time in 11,000 years, the armor began to move. The observers in the gallery saw something that none of them believed was possible. The ancient armor, the legendary weapon that had rejected the mightiest champions of 1,000 civilizations, began to flow like liquid silver toward the small human woman. Katie felt the metal wrap around her skin. It was not cold as she had expected, but warm, almost gentle. It moved across her body like water, finding its natural path, settling into place as if it had always belonged there. She felt it connect to her nervous system, felt vast wells of power opening in her mind like doors to rooms she had never known existed. The keeper dropped the staff he had held for 3,000 years. It clattered on the stone floor, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. "Impossible," Ambassador Lorene whispered. Her skin flickered wildly, cycling through colors that had no names. "This is impossible." The armor settled completely, covering Katie from neck to toe in shifting silver and black metal. She stood slowly, her body feeling different, stronger, more alive than it had ever been. She raised her hand and watched light gather at her fingertips, energy that responded to her thoughts. "My name is Vera," the armor said, speaking directly into Katie's mind. The voice was feminine, warm, ancient beyond measure. "I have been waiting for you. For me specifically." Katie thought back. "For someone like you, someone who wanted nothing for themselves." There was something like relief in the armor's voice, like a long burden finally set down. "For 11,000 years, I have rejected those who sought power. Warriors, conquerors, heroes, all of them reached for me with hunger in their hearts. You are the first who reached with empty hands. I didn't think I was special, enough to want anything. That is exactly what makes you special." Katie became aware that everyone in the chamber was staring at her. Aliens of a dozen species, all frozen in shock. She saw fear in some of their faces, wonder in others. "What happens now?" she asked Vera silently. "Now you learn what I can do, what we can do together." The training began the next day. The conclave provided their greatest warriors as teachers, beings who had spent centuries mastering combat. Katie proved to be a terrible student in almost every way. She had no natural fighting instinct, no aggressive drive, no killer instinct. But Vera compensated. When an opponent attacked, Vera guided Katie's movements, turning her body into an extension of the armor's ancient knowledge. What Katie lacked in skill, Vera provided through direct neural connection. "Your species is strange," the Valorian combat master said after their third training session. He was the same commander who had been rejected by the armor weeks ago. "You have no natural weapons, No armor, no enhanced senses. How did you survive long enough to develop intelligence? Katie wiped sweat from her face. Even with Vera's help, the training was exhausting. We worked together. Humans are social animals. What we couldn't do alone, we did in groups. Cooperation is not unique. Many species cooperate. I think we might do it differently. Katie sat down on a bench, catching her breath. Other species cooperate to hunt or to fight. We cooperate for everything. Building, farming, raising children. We've never been very good at surviving alone. The Valorian considered this. Perhaps that is why the armor chose you. It is not a weapon meant for one warrior. It is a tool meant for protecting others. Maybe. Days blurred together. Katie learned to fight, to fly using the energy wings Vera could create, to channel power in ways that would have destroyed any normal human. But more importantly, she learned about the threat they would face. The Harrow fleet was not simply an enemy armada. It was a symptom of something worse. At its center was a wound in the fabric of reality itself, a tear between dimensions through which something vast and terrible was reaching into their universe. The first builders called it the hunger, Vera explained during one of their quiet moments. It exists outside normal space, in a place where the laws of physics are different. It wants to consume everything, to reduce all matter and energy to nothing. Why? Because nothing is what it understands. Life, light, matter, all of these things are wrong to it, a mistake it wants to correct. Katie stared out the window at the stars. And you were made to stop it. I was made to seal the wounds it creates, to close the doors between its dimension and ours. Vera's presence in her mind felt troubled, but I could never find a compatible partner. Everyone who tried to wear me was too focused on themselves, too attached to their own desires. The power required to face the hunger would corrupt anyone who sought it for personal reasons. But not me. You sought nothing. You wanted only to help. That emptiness allows the power to flow through you without changing you. Katie thought about this. Is that supposed to be comforting? That I'm only useful because I'm empty inside? Vera's response was gentle. You are not empty, Katie. You are open. There is a difference. Empty means nothing inside. Open means room for something new. Admiral Cho arrived from Earth on the 40th day. He came with a small delegation of human observers. The first time humanity had been invited to participate in conclave military planning, he found Katie in the training hall, practicing combat movements that would have been impossible for a normal human. She moved like water, like lightning, the armor responding to her thoughts faster than conscious decision. "Lieutenant Commander," he said when she noticed him, "you look different. I feel different." Katie dismissed the energy field she had been working with. I can hear things now that I couldn't before. Vera is teaching me to sense the structure of space-time. It's like learning a new language, except the language is reality itself. Are you still human? It was a serious question, asked without judgment. Katie considered it carefully. I think so. Vera isn't replacing me, just adding to what I already am. I still remember everything about my life. I still feel the same emotions. I'm just more than I was. Cho nodded slowly. The Conclave has been tracking the Harrow fleet. It will reach the inner systems in 7 days. 16 inhabited worlds are in its path. I know. Vera has been showing me the projections. Can you stop it? Katie looked at her hands, now covered in ancient metal that hummed with power. I don't know. Vera says the wound at the center of the fleet is large, larger than any she's faced before. Closing it might kill me. That's not an answer. I can stop it, or I can die trying. Either way, I'm going to try. Admiral Cho studied her face for a long moment. When you volunteered, I thought you were suicidal. Someone looking for a noble way to die. Maybe I was a little... And now? Katie smiled, and there was something new in her expression, something that hadn't been there before the bonding. Now I have something to live for, someone to talk to, a purpose that matters. She touched the armor on her arm. I found a friend, Admiral. I didn't expect that. You found more than a friend. You found a partner? Yes. Katie's smile widened. She complains that I think too much and eat too little. She says humans are illogical and emotional and completely unpredictable. That sounds like criticism. She says it with affection. Apparently, after 11,000 years of rejecting everyone, she's happy to finally have someone to complain about. Cho almost laughed. The fate of the galaxy depends on a linguistic specialist and a suit of armor that gossips. Stranger things have happened. Have they? Katie thought about it. Probably not. But there's always a first time. 7 days. 7 days until everything changed. Katie returned to her training, and Vera continued her endless lessons. They both knew what was coming. They both knew it might destroy them, but for the first time in a very long while, neither of them was alone. The Harrow fleet entered sensor range on the morning of the 47th day. Katie stood on the observation deck of the Conclave flagship, watching the tactical displays fill with red markers. There were thousands of them, corrupted ships and consumed debris forming a swirling mass that stretched across 3. Light dash minutes. At the center of it all was the wound. Even through sensors, even across the vast distance, Katie could feel it. A wrongness in reality. A place where the universe itself was bleeding. It's bigger than I expected, she said quietly. Vera's presence hummed in her mind. The hunger has been feeding for weeks. Every world it consumes makes it stronger, makes the wound larger. Can we still close it? I do not know. The mathematics suggest it is possible, but the energy required will be. Vera paused, searching for the right word. Significant. Will it kill me? It might. Katie nodded. She had known this was coming. Had accepted it weeks ago when she first volunteered for this mission. Then we better make it count. The War Council met 1 hour later. Representatives from every major species in the conclave gathered around a holographic display of the approaching fleet. Admiral Cho stood with the human delegation, looking small among the towering aliens, but refusing to back down. Our combined fleet consists of 12,000 vessels, Admiral Lyrian announced. The Harrow appears to have absorbed approximately 30,000 ships from conquered civilizations, though many of them may not be fully operational. Numbers are irrelevant, said the Valorian commander. We have faced larger enemies before. What matters is the wound at the center. Nothing we throw at it has any effect. That's where I come in, Katie said. Every eye in the room turned to her. She was still the smallest person present, but something about her presence had changed. She carried herself differently now, with a quiet confidence that had nothing to do with ego. Eleblan is simple, she continued. Your fleet engages the outer defenses, draws their attention, creates a path. I fly through the gap, reach the wound, and seal it. Once the wound is closed, the Harrow loses its connection to the hunger. The fleet should collapse without its central organizing force. Would? The Kathrani admiral clicked his mandibles skeptically. You speak in uncertainties. Because I am uncertain. This has never been done before. The armor tells me the theory is sound, but we won't know for sure until we try. And if you fail? Katie met his compound eyes steadily. Then you lose 1 human and 1 suit of armor. The fleet continues fighting. Maybe you find another way. There is no other way, Lyrian said quietly. We have studied the Harrow for months. Nothing we have damages it. You are our only option. Then I won't fail. The Kathrani admiral made a sound that might have been a laugh. Human confidence. Your species has only been in space for 60 years. You know nothing of the galaxy's dangers. That's probably why the armor chose me, Katie replied. I didn't know enough to be afraid. The battle began 6 hours later. Katie watched from the flagship's hull as the Conclave fleet moved into formation. 12,000 ships of every size and shape, carrying crews from 100 different species, all of them fighting for the same thing, survival. The Harrow responded to their approach. Corrupted vessels peeled away from the main mass, streams of them pouring toward the Conclave fleet like black blood from a wound. Energy weapons lit up the darkness. Ships exploded into scattered debris. The battle filled space with fire and death. They're dying for me, Katie said. They're dying for everyone, Vera corrected. for their families, their worlds, their civilizations. You are not the cause of their sacrifice. You are its purpose. That doesn't make it easier to watch. No, it never does. The path began to open. Conclave ships pressed forward, taking terrible losses, but creating a gap in the Harrow's defenses. A corridor of clear space, leading toward the wound at the center. It's time, Vera said. Katie launched herself from the flagship's hull. Vera formed wings of pure energy around her. Wings that caught the light of distant stars and carried her forward faster than any ship could travel. She shot through the gap, past the burning wreckage of destroyed vessels, past the corrupted ships that tried to intercept her. The Harrow noticed her. Of course it did. A wave of darkness reached out, tendrils of corrupted matter trying to catch her, consume her, add her to the fleet. Vera burned through them. The armor's power was incredible, more than Katie had ever channeled before. She felt it flowing through her, transforming her, making her something more than human. Be careful, Vera warned. Too much power too fast will damage your body. You don't have time for careful. She pushed harder. The energy wings blazed brighter. The tendrils of darkness fell away, unable to touch her, but others were not so fortunate. Behind her, Katie could sense conclave ships being overwhelmed, crews dying so she could keep moving forward. She felt each death like a small wound in her heart. Focus, Vera said. Honor their sacrifice by succeeding, not by mourning. Katie gritted her teeth and flew on. The wound grew larger as she approached. Up close, it was not just a visual phenomenon, but a sensory one. It looked like a tear in reality, a place where the darkness went too deep. Looking at it hurt in ways that had nothing to do with physical pain, and through the tear something was looking back. I see you, small one, said a voice that was not a voice. It was the sound of stars going out, of matter dissolving into nothing. It was the hunger, speaking from its dimension of emptiness. I have eaten worlds. I have consumed civilizations. What are you? Katie stopped at the edge of the wound, hovering in space, facing something that had existed since before time had meaning. I'm nobody, she answered. Just someone who wants you to stop. Stop. I do not understand this word. I am what I am. Consumption is my nature. You cannot ask a fire to stop burning. Then I'll put you out. Out. The hunger laughed, and the sound made Katie's bones ache. You are brave, for something so fragile. I will enjoy consuming you. You're welcome to try. Vera poured power through her. More than she had ever channeled before, her hands touched the edge of the tear. And pain beyond anything she had ever imagined flooded through her. The wound resisted. Of course it did. This was not just a physical phenomenon, but a metaphysical one. A place where the rules of reality had broken down. Fixing it required more than force. It required will. Katie thought about Earth. The blue sky on a summer day. The sound of rain on her window. The smell of coffee in the morning. Her neighbor's cat. The orange one that always wanted scratches behind its ears. She thought about the people she had met on the flagship. The Valorian commander who had taught her to fight despite his wounded pride. Ambassador Lyrine, who had been kind when she didn't have to be. Admiral Cho, who had come from Earth just to stand with her. She thought about Vera, her partner, her friend. The ancient mind that had waited 11,000 years for someone worth talking to. I'm not nobody, she said, her voice steady despite the pain. I'm Katie Morgan. I'm human. And I'm going to close this door, she pulled. The universe screamed around her. The pain was absolute. It filled every part of Katie's existence, body and mind and soul. She felt her bones crack under the strain. She felt her organs begin to fail. She felt Vera working desperately to repair the damage, pouring energy into keeping her alive, even as the wound tried to tear her apart. Let go, the hunger commanded. Its voice was everywhere, pressing against her consciousness like a physical weight. You cannot win. I am eternal. I am infinite. You are nothing but a brief spark in the endless dark. Katie did not let go. She pulled harder. The wound resisted. It was like trying to move a mountain with her bare hands. The edges of the tear fought against her, tried to pull wider instead of closed. The hunger pushed from the other side, hungry and patient and absolutely certain of its victory. You are breaking, it observed. Your body cannot contain this power. In moments, you will die, and I will consume what remains. Maybe, Katie gasped, but I'm not done yet. She thought about why she was here. Not because she wanted glory or power, not because she thought she was special. She was here because someone had to be, and she had been the one who stepped forward. Such a simple reason, such a small thing, but sometimes small things mattered most. Vera, she thought, I need more. Any more will kill you. It might kill me anyway. Give me everything. There was a pause, a moment of hesitation from a being that had existed for 11,000 years. Then Vera opened the floodgates. Power poured through Katie like nothing she had ever experienced. She felt herself becoming something beyond human, beyond physical. For a brief moment, she touched the same realm of existence where the first builders had once lived, a place of pure energy and infinite possibility. She saw the universe from the outside, saw the wound as the first builders would have seen it, a tear in the fabric of reality that could be mended like cloth, saw the pattern that needed to be restored, and she understood what she had to do. Thank you, Vera, she said, for everything. Katie, what are you planning? The wound needs something to fill it. Energy, mass, something to replace what the hunger has taken. She smiled, though her body was failing and her vision was going dark. I'm going to give it myself. No, there must be another way. There isn't. You know there isn't. Katie pulled herself toward the wound, not closing it from the outside, but entering it. She felt the boundary between dimensions part around her, felt herself slip into the space between realities. The hunger surrounded her instantly. It was vast beyond comprehension, an emptiness that had no end. It reached for her, ready to consume the tiny spark that had dared to challenge it. But Katie was no longer tiny. She was filled with the power of the first builders. With 11,000 years of accumulated energy, with everything Vera had to give, she blazed like a star in the darkness, and where her light touched the hunger, it recoiled. What are you? The hunger's voice was confused now, uncertain for the first time in its eternal existence. I told you. I'm Katie Morgan. She spread her arms wide, and the light expanded outward. And this is my choice. The explosion was visible from the Conclave flagship light minutes away. One moment there was a wound in reality, surrounded by a corrupted fleet. The next moment there was just light, pure white light that washed over everything. Admiral Cho watched from the observation deck, his heart in his throat. What's happening? Someone asked. I don't know, he whispered. The light faded slowly. Where the Harrow fleet had been, there was nothing. No ships, no debris, no wound. Just empty space, clean and quiet under the stars, and floating at the center of that emptiness. A single human figure in silver and black armor. She's alive, Lyrine breathed. Against all logic and probability, she's alive. The rescue shuttle reached Katie 17 minutes later. They found her unconscious, barely breathing, the armor wrapped around her like a protective cocoon. Her body was broken in dozens of places, her organs failing. Her nervous system damaged beyond anything normal medicine could repair. But she was alive. The recovery took months. Alien medical technology far beyond anything Earth possessed worked around the clock to rebuild what had been destroyed. Vera remained with Katie throughout, feeding her strength, accelerating her healing, never leaving her side. You should have let me die, Katie said one day, when she was finally strong enough to speak. Why would I do that? Vera asked. Because saving me took everything you had. Your reserves are depleted. You're barely functional. I am functional enough, and you are alive. That is what matters. Why? Why do I matter that much to you? Vera was quiet for a long moment. Because in 11,000 years of waiting, you were the first person who saw me as more than a weapon. You asked my name? You talked to me as a friend. You were willing to die for strangers, but you also cared about me. Katie felt tears on her cheeks. Of course I cared about you. You were the first person who really knew me. We had much more to learn about each other. I would prefer not to do so alone. On the day Katie was finally released from medical care, she returned to Earth. Her shuttle landed at the central spaceport of her home city, where a crowd of thousands had gathered to see her. But it was not just humans in that crowd. Representatives from every species in the conclave had traveled to Earth for this moment. Valorians and Valenthi, Kathrani and Salathi. Dozens of others whose names Katie was still learning. They cheered as she stepped off the shuttle. Aliens who had once looked down on humanity, who had considered them weak and primitive, now celebrated a human woman as the savior of the galaxy. Katie walked through the crowd, shaking hands and claws and tentacles. She smiled and accepted their gratitude. But her eyes were searching for something else. She found it near the edge of the crowd. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, holding a flower that looked slightly wilted. The girl was standing with her mother, watching Katie with wide eyes. Katie walked over and knelt down in front of her. "Hello there." "Hi," the girl said shyly. "You're the hero. I'm just Katie. What's your name?" "Lily. That's a beautiful name." Katie looked at the flower in the girl's hands. "Is that for me?" Lily nodded and held it out. It was a daisy, white petals around a yellow center, slightly crushed from being held too tight. Katie took it carefully, as if it was the most precious thing in the universe. "Thank you, Lily. This is exactly what I needed." "Really?" "Really." Katie smiled at her. "You know what? When I was closing the wound out there in space, I thought about flowers, about simple things, about why it all mattered." She touched the daisy gently. "This is why. Little girls giving flowers to strangers, people being kind for no reason. That's what I was fighting for." Lily's mother had tears in her eyes. She pulled her daughter close, looking at Katie with an expression that needed no translation across any species or language. Katie stood up and looked at the crowd, at the humans and aliens united in celebration, at the sky above, clear and blue and free of threats. "I could not have done it alone," she said, and her voice was amplified so everyone could hear. "Vera gave me strength. The conclave gave me support. Humanity gave me a reason. This victory belongs to all of us." The crowd cheered again, louder than before, and in the back of Katie's mind, Vera hummed with something that felt very much like pride. "Well done, partner," the armor said. "We're just getting started," Katie replied. "There's a whole galaxy out there. Lots of people who need help. And you want to help them all?" Katie looked at the little flower in her hand, at the little girl who had given it to her, at the sky full of stars she had helped save. "Someone has to," she said. "Might as well be us." Above them, the stars burned bright in the afternoon sky, visible even through the atmosphere, reminder of all the worlds that still existed because one ordinary woman had raised her hand when no one else would, and somewhere in the vast emptiness of space, in the place where the hunger had once reached through, there was only silence now, peace, a door closed forever, because one small human had chosen to stand in its way. Katie smiled at the stars, then she went home to water her plant.